I've been married to Nico Shu for 50 years, and I always thought we were a loving couple who would grow old together. But on Nico Shu's dying day, he suddenly asked our adopted son to summon Vivi Lee, the widow who used to live next door to us, right in front of me. Nico Shu held Vivi Lee's hand with tears streaming down his aged face. He said he was sorry for not being able to give Vivi Lee the status she deserved during his lifetime. He said if there were a next life, he would definitely leave no regrets and stay with Vivi Lee until they grew old together. They confided in each other without any reservations. Only in my twilight years did I realize that Vivi Lee and Nico Shu had long been secretly involved. And only then did I discover that the adopted child at home was their biological son. Unable to bear such a blow, I was literally angered to death. Opening my eyes again, I found myself back at the moment when Vivi Lee pushed me and caused my miscarriage. In this life, I will let Nico Shu and Vivi Lee have their way, ensuring they have no regrets. Comrade Yi, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't know you were pregnant. I apologize to you. The woman's apology sounded utterly insincere, even carrying a hint of schadenfreude. A dull pain throbbed in my lower abdomen as I opened my eyes in confusion. The first thing I saw was Vivi Lee, decades younger. Then immediately following was the sight of Nico Shu standing beside Vivi Lee. His face cold and equally decades younger, shocked and disbelieving. I raised my hands to look at them. My hands were no longer veiny or covered in age spots. Instead, they were plump and rosy. These are the hands of a young person. So, have I been reborn? Reborn to the day after being pushed by Vivi Lee and losing the child. When Vivi Lee hypocritically came to apologize, seeing me holding up my hands with a dazed look, not saying a word. A flash of impatience crossed Nico Shu's face as he spoke in an icy tone. Iris Yi, Vivi Lee didn't mean to push you. She just accidentally bumped into you. We can have another child if this one's gone. Just focus on recovering. Let's consider this matter closed. Accidentally. Just move past this. Nico Shu is truly something else. His own child was killed by Vivi Lee, yet he acts as if nothing happened and casually expects me to forgive her too. In my past life, I failed to see through his true nature. So I believed his words and thought it was all just an accident, which led me to forgive Vivi Lee. I let those two scumbags humiliate me right under my nose. This time around, it won't be so easy for them, since fate has granted me a second chance. I must seize this opportunity to teach these heartless wretches a lesson they'll never forget. I thought to myself, my gaze falling on the thermos bottle placed by the bedside. Almost as soon as my eyes saw it, my heart reacted. And I immediately reached out to grab the thermos. Nico Shu impatiently grabbed the thermos before I could. If you want water, I'll pour it for you. His expression and tone were cold, as if speaking to a stranger. Why couldn't I see through it in my past life? How could I have poured all my sincerity into this scoundrel of a man? Nico Shu coldly handed me the water. Drink up. By the way, you don't seem too badly hurt. Rest for a couple of days and then get back to work. Falling behind would be disastrous. After Nico Shu coldly finished saying these words to me, I clearly saw the flash of triumph in Vivi Lee's eyes as she stood by the bed. Hatred churned in my chest. I was absolutely certain that Vivi Lee pushing me was no accident, but entirely intentional. She knew I was pregnant. She didn't want me to have Nico Shu's child. Images of my past life, where I was driven to death by rage, surged before my eyes. I knocked the cup out of Nico Shu's hand. He grabbed the thermos again and smashed it on the floor, the scalding water inside splashing onto Nico Shu, who jumped in pain from the burn. Iris Yi, what the hell is wrong with you? As Nico Shu's furious questioning voice faded, I had already sat up and swiftly grabbed Vivi Lee's hair, yanking it downward with force. I had always been gentle and obedient, following Nico Shu's lead in everything, so Vivi Lee was convinced that with Nico Shu protecting her, nothing would ever happen. Caught off guard by my sudden attack, she felt as if her scalp was about to be torn off. She let out a painful scream. What are you doing? Let go. Letting go was, of course, impossible. I grabbed Vivi Lee's hair tightly with one hand while raising the other and slapping her with all my might. The sound crackling through the air. I'll teach you to push me. I'll teach you to kill my child. By the time Nico Shu reacted and rescued Vivi Lee, I had already landed over a dozen slaps on her. Big and small, Vivi Lee's once delicate face was now unrecognizable, swollen like a steamed bun. Nico Shu, seeing his beloved woman beaten like this by me, was heartbroken beyond measure and roared at me with a ferocious glare. What's wrong with you? Iris Yi, why did you hit someone? Are you out of your mind? Why, Nico Shu, are you even human? This woman pushed me and killed the child in my womb, and you still ask me for a reason. Don't you know that the murder of one's child is an unforgivable enmity? You, faced with my accusation, Nico Shu looked guilty, his voice and demeanor weakening. Vivi Lee said it wasn't on purpose, it was just an accident. You believe her just because she says it wasn't on purpose. Then does that mean my child died for nothing? I'm telling you, this isn't over. Vivi Lee covered her swollen face, crying pitifully. I really didn't mean to. I just accidentally tripped and knocked Comrade Yi over. I've already apologized. What more do you want? My face. Woo-woo, she was crying bitterly, not pretending. It was genuine pain, seeing his beloved in distress. Nico Shu's heart ached to the extreme. With a dark expression, he scolded me. Look at what you've done. How could you hit someone without even asking for the facts? It's only because Vivi Lee has a good temper. Try that with someone else. Do you want to go to jail, while scolding me? He went to comfort Vivi Lee. Stop crying. This is all Iris Yi's fault. She's the one being unreasonable. I'll make her apologize to you. Your face is hurt. Let me take you to see a doctor first. Nico Shu truly treats me like a fool, like I'm already dead, right in front of me. He comforts Vivi Lee without the slightest hesitation. Vivi Lee covered her face and sobbed. My face won't recover anytime soon. I can't possibly go out and work with this swollen face. People would talk, wouldn't they? But I still have so much work to do. Let Iris Yi help you. She's the one who beat you up like this. It's only right that she should help you. These two despicable people never took me seriously in our past life. They've always bullied me like this. But I've always endured things quietly and kept my temper mild, to the point that when I suddenly lashed out and hit someone, Nico Shu didn't take me seriously at all. He even had the nerve to order me, who had just had a miscarriage, to help Vivi Lee with her work. Nico Shu finished speaking and, half supporting half carrying Vivi Lee, prepared to leave. This is treating the reborn me as if I were dead. I sneered coldly. Did I say you could leave? Stay right where you are. Nico Shu was busy trying to comfort Vivi Lee when I called out to him, and he impatiently turned his head. What do you want now, Iris Yi? Can you stop being so unreasonable? I'm telling you, if you keep this up. Nico Shu didn't get to finish his sentence before I grabbed the bowl from the bedside and smashed it into his face, silencing him. After 3 years of marriage, not to mention physical violence, I always spoke to him in a gentle tone. Suddenly struck, a wound appeared on Nico Shu's face. Blood gushing out, ignoring the pain and bleeding, he looked at me as if he had seen a ghost. My eyes were wide with fury, and I spoke word by word. Vivi Lee did this intentionally. It's attempted murder. I'm going to call the police. I want justice. What? You're going to call the police? Nico Shu and Vivi Lee exchanged glances, clearly panicking. Nico Shu was the first to react, trying to calm me down. Iris Yi, this was just an accident. Calling the police won't change anything. Nico Shu, this was no accident. I'm absolutely certain Vivi Lee pushed me. I'm telling you. I won't let her get away with this. I'm going to the police. That vicious woman deserves to be punished. Seeing my resolute attitude, Nico Shu began to waver. Ignoring the injury on his face, he immediately released Vivi Lee and came back to persuade me. Iris Yi, Vivi Lee isn't exactly an outsider. She's the widow of my friend. For the sake of my late friend, can't you just let this go? In my previous life, I was married to Nico Shu for 6 months when Vivi Lee's husband died in an accident. Nico Shu told me that he was friends with Vivi Lee's husband and couldn't bear to see his friend's widow left alone with no one to care for her, so he frequently went to help Vivi Lee, not knowing that Nico Shu and Vivi Lee had already been secretly carrying on behind my back. I thought Nico Shu was helping Vivi Lee because he was kind-hearted and enjoyed helping others. Kept in the dark, I thought I had married a kind-hearted and good husband, and even helped Vivi Lee together with Nico Shu. Whatever delicious food there was, I would share a portion with Vivi Lee, and even did her share of work to earn her work points. At that time, Nico Shu was a teacher at the school, earning several dozen yuan a month. He found all sorts of excuses to give that money to Vivi Lee, while I, fooled by his sweet words, remained completely unsuspecting. That bitch Vivi Lee treats me like a fool, showing no gratitude at all and instead bullying me even more. When she found out I was pregnant, she viciously pushed me down the stairs, causing me to lose the baby. She doesn't want me to give birth to Nico Shu's child, especially since Vivi Lee is already pregnant with Nico Shu's baby in her belly. For the sake of that piece of flesh in her belly, she had no choice but to take the risk. The hatred from my past life made me point at the bruised and battered Vivi Lee. If you don't want me to call the police, then kneel, apologize for my dead child. Vivi Lee had no intention of kneeling. So I pretended to walk away. Guilty as she was, she didn't dare to defy me in the end and fell to her knees with a thud. Seeing Vivi Lee kneeling before me, Nico Shu's heart ached to the extreme, and he quickly reached out to help her up. Iris Yi, Vivi Lee has already knelt. Let's end this matter here. Wait a minute. Kneeling is just the first step. I've just had a miscarriage and am very weak. I need to rest and recover. I can't do the household chores anymore. So Vivi Lee will have to take care of all of them. What? Vivi Lee was unwilling, but I stared at her coldly. Unwilling? Then let's go to the police station and settle this. I didn't budge an inch. The despicable couple, guilty at heart, eventually agreed to my terms. When I left, the venomous look Vivi Lee gave me was as if it were laced with poison. I sneered at her bruised and swollen face. I knew she had more tricks up her sleeve, but I wasn't afraid, having died once before. If I were to continue living like a coward, what would be the point of my rebirth? In this life, I will make them know that I, Iris Yi, am a vengeful ghost who comes for their lives. I will make them pay in blood for deceiving and humiliating me. I stayed at home for 2 days, lying in bed, constantly planning my next move. In my past life, I revolved everything around Nico Shu, making him the center of my world. Whatever Nico Shu said went. And I diligently and faithfully played the role of his devoted partner. I did all the household chores as a woman, so Nico Shu had plenty of time to fool around with Vivi Lee and study for the college entrance exams. After the resumption of the college entrance exams, Nico Shu got into a prestigious university and climbed the ladder of success, going from an ordinary substitute teacher to a renowned university professor. I was also preparing for the college entrance exams at the time. But Nico Shu's mother suddenly broke her leg and needed someone to take care of her. I loved Nico Shu, so I gave up my chance to take the college entrance exams for him and stayed home to care for his paralyzed mother, even handling her most intimate needs. Nico Shu's paralyzed mother was well taken care of by me and lived to nearly 90 years old. I spent 40 years of my life caring for Nico Shu's mother, completely unaware that Nico Shu had another family outside with Vivi Lee, until his death. Nico Shu regretted not giving Vivi Lee a proper status. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but because his paralyzed mother needed a free caretaker, he was concerned about his reputation as a prominent professor and feared being criticized by others, so he could only keep Vivi Lee outside the family. On his deathbed, Nico Shu finally felt regret. Regret for not divorcing me sooner, regret for being tied to me his entire life, but wasn't I also bound to him for a lifetime? If only I had known earlier about his disloyalty, about his shameless betrayal, I would never stay by his side without complaint or regret, serving as his free nanny. I am absolutely certain that what happened in my past life won't occur again. In this life, I'm going to take the college entrance exam. For the next few days, I lay in bed without moving, demanding good food and refusing to do any work, making Nico Shu wait on me. Nico Shu wasn't happy about it. On the 3rd day of my bedridden state, his mother stormed in, half asleep in bed. I heard the wailing cries of Nico Shu's mother. What sin have I committed? My good son married such a wife, lazy and gluttonous, only knowing how to lie in bed and sleep without doing anything, and even hitting my son. I've been waiting for Nico Shu's mother to come and cause trouble for me ever since I left a mark on Nico Shu's face. In my previous life, Nico Shu's mother looked down on me and kept delaying my life. In my past life, when Vivi Lee pushed me and caused a miscarriage, she came to make a scene once. While I was still recovering from the miscarriage, she forced me to work, fetching water, chopping firewood, and laboring in the fields. She treated me like an ox, and I obediently endured the hardship without daring to utter a word, which later led to a lifetime of illness. After Nico Shu's mother became paralyzed, I took care of her dutifully, handling all her needs without complaint, yet she never showed me any gratitude. She said I should be eternally grateful that Nikoshu married me, that I ought to be on my knees thanking my ancestors, and that serving her was my duty. I was foolish in my past life, enduring it all because I loved Nikoshu, while being unreasonably harassed by Nikoshu's mother. I kept thinking, wait a little longer, endure a little more. Who knew that this little longer would turn into 50 years, and this endurance would last a lifetime? Nikoshu's mother barged in, shouting, and locked eyes with me as I sat up in bed. She glared at me with gritted teeth, looking at me as if I were her enemy. Iris you little bitch raised without a mother's discipline. How dare you hit my Nico? If you can't give me a proper reason today, just wait and see how I deal with you. I looked at the vicious mother of Nikoshu and sneered disdainfully. How dare I? Because he deserved it. He fooled around with another woman, gave all his salary to her, and even let that woman push me, his wife, causing me to miscarry. What did you say? Which woman did Nico give his salary to? Nikoshu's mother didn't care about my miscarriage, but she cared about Nikoshu's salary. Speaking of Nikoshu's mother, she's quite a formidable figure, quite renowned in the local area. Nikoshu secretly gave his salary to Vivi Lee and was afraid his mother would find out, so he always used me as a cover. In my past life, I foolishly covered for Nikoshu, leading his mother to believe that I was the one spending all his salary. But now, things won't be so easy. I want Nikoshu's mother to know exactly what kind of person her son is, so I spilled everything I knew without holding back. Upon hearing that her son had given his salary to Vivi Lee and often helped her, Nikoshu's mother flew into a rage and went to vent her anger at Vivi Lee, cursing all the way. I thought that with Nikoshu's mother's shrewish temper, she would surely make Vivi Lee suffer. I was eagerly waiting in the room, anticipating the sound of wailing and howling from next door, but surprisingly, Vivi Lee was completely unharmed. Nikoshu's mother only managed to slap Vivi Lee once before Nikoshu stopped her. What happened next was conducted behind closed doors, and I couldn't hear what they were saying. All I know is that when Nikoshu's mother returned, she was still cursing at me. Get up and work right now. So what if you had a miscarriage? It's not like you lost an arm or a leg. Stop acting like some delicate princess. Back when I was 8 months pregnant with Nico, I was still working. I watched Nikoshu's mother, her face twisted with rage, as she hurled vulgar insults that were painful to hear. I couldn't help but laugh. Nikoshu must have told his mother about Vivi Lee's pregnancy, which is why she suddenly backed off. Old woman, you and your son are birds of a feather. How wonderful. Just wait, your good days are coming soon. Soon you'll be left with broken arms and legs, crippled for life. This time, I want to see who will serve you as devotedly as I did. Surely it couldn't be Vivi Lee, pregnant with your son's child, could it? In any case, it's absolutely impossible to be me. After Nikoshu's mother finished scolding me, she left, telling me to get up and start working immediately. Before she went, she said she'd be back in a few days, and if she found out I was still slacking off and refusing to work, she'd make me regret it. I have no doubt about her threats. After all, the old lady is a tough character who always follows through on her words. Even before she was paralyzed, she relentlessly tormented me, and after her paralysis, she continued to torment me day and night. None of their family ever treated me as a human being. Not long after Nikoshu's mother left, Nikoshu returned. The way he looks at me is like watching a joke. He knows his mother has wasted my time. He knows I fear his mother and want to gain her approval. He knows everything. He's waiting for me to slave away for him like I did in my past life. But how could I? I suffered enough in my past life. Why would I let history repeat itself in this one? If I'm reborn only to continue suffering and being bullied, then what's the point of being reborn? I might as well just smash my head and die. I originally planned to endure for a few more days, to wait until after my postpartum confinement, to recover my health before dealing with them. Since they're asking for death, there's no other way. I'll have to oblige them. I glared coldly at the gloating Nikoshu and ordered, make me some brown sugar eggs, 6 eggs, with extra brown sugar. A look of surprise flashed across Nikoshu's face. You, he must have wanted to say, how dare you? After all, his mother had just warned me, hadn't she? I should have been trembling in fear. I should have been obedient and submissive to him as I had been in the past, but why am I afraid to? I watched as Nikoshu enunciated each word clearly. Do as I say, otherwise, the scandal of Vivi Lee, a single woman with a big belly, will become public knowledge. You don't want to see that happen, do you? Nico Shu's expression shifted from shock to surprise, then to anger, and finally to fear. In just a few minutes, his face went through a myriad of changes. I stared at him with a steady smile, waiting for his response. I knew he wouldn't dare challenge me. After all, in this day and age, engaging in improper relationships between men and women is no small matter. If Nico Shu hadn't gotten Vivi Lee pregnant, it would have been fine. He could have denied it and accused me of slandering him. He could come up with 1,000 reasons to refuse with his silver tongue. But now, Vivi Lee is carrying his child in her belly, over 3 months along. She isn't showing yet, but it wouldn't stand up to scrutiny. In her previous life, Vivi Lee stopped going out altogether, using her pregnancy as an excuse to feign illness. I did all the work for her, never suspecting she was pretending to be sick. After she gave birth and during her postpartum confinement, I foolishly waited on Vivi Lee like an idiot. I even took in the illegitimate child she deliberately left in my path, the one she had with Nico Shu, and raised him as my own. Then, at the final moment, they dealt me a fatal blow. I really had no one to blame but myself for my death. This time around, I exposed the truth early. If Nico Shu doesn't want to die or go down with Vivi Lee, he'll have to do exactly as I say. The taste of 6 eggs with 2 pieces of brown sugar is so sweet and fragrant. I ate heartily, while Nico Shu's face turned ashen. After finishing my meal, I pushed the bowl aside and said, "From now on, you and Vivi Lee can do all my work for me." Nico Shu asked me resentfully, "Irisy, how did you find out?" Nico Shu thought I was a fool, believing his own actions were flawless. Indeed, if I hadn't been reborn into this life, I would still be completely in the dark. But now I've been given a second chance at life. I won't tell him the reason. Let him guess, let him stew in his own frustration. Never mind how I found out, I just have this one small request. You take care of all the work from now on, and I'll turn a blind eye to your little affairs. Fair deal, isn't it? Nico Shu's expression looked as miserable as if he had eaten shit, probably thinking I would throw a tantrum. I loved him so much, endured his mother's torment for him, obeyed his every word, and now, here I was, letting him go so easily, allowing him to flirt with another woman right under my nose. This was beyond Nico Shu's imagination. He scrutinized me while I smiled at him cheerfully. In the end, Nico Shu conceded defeat and left with the empty bowl. A few minutes later, Nico Shu's footsteps faded away. I know he went to discuss with Vivi Lee. After all, I'm aware of his scandal with Vivi Lee, and the fact that Vivi Lee is pregnant was truly shocking to Nico Shu. He couldn't figure out how I knew these secrets, nor could he understand why I, who had always been diligent and uncomplaining, had suddenly become a completely different person. Nico Shu certainly wouldn't dare to underestimate matters beyond his control. He had to consult with Vivi Lee to prepare for what might happen in the future. I've been waiting for this moment. It's dark outside, and Nico Shu still hasn't returned. I know he probably won't come back tonight, so I quietly opened the door, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped outside. Tonight, I'm going to give Nico Shu and Vivi Lee a big surprise because I can't hold it in anymore, not even for a minute. At midnight, the gate of Vivi Lee's courtyard was kicked open by me and the people I brought with me. Nico Shu and Vivi Lee, caught in their tender moment, were cornered by me, along with the village officials and a few villagers. Nico Shu and Vivi Lee stared blankly at the crowd that had burst in, completely clueless about what was happening. I roared with full force, "Nico Shu, you bastard, how could you do this to me?" I rushed over and yanked Nico Shu off the bed, raining down a flurry of slaps on him. While hitting him, I accused, "You said poor Vivi Lee lost her husband and needed help, so I trusted you and even joined you in helping her. Never did I expect this is how you helped her." After beating Nico Shu, I turned to Vivi Lee. "Vivi Lee, you heartless wretch, you pushed me and caused my miscarriage, yet you show no remorse. I wondered why you never came home. I truly believed you were helping her. Are you two even human? You pair of depraved monsters." Nico Shu and Vivi Lee were tied up and dragged to the village headquarters. Nico Shu looked terrified, while Vivi Lee trembled in fear. I wailed and sobbed the whole way, my cries echoing through the night like they were amplified by a loudspeaker. Villagers opened their doors to see what was happening, and the scandal of Nico Shu and Vivi Lee became widely known. There was no way to hide it anymore. That night, the mountain village was bustling to the extreme, with onlookers crowding the village headquarters. Nico Shu and Vivi Lee became infamous overnight. At this time, engaging in illicit relationships was a serious crime, and Nico Shu and Vivi Lee were tied up and taken to the village headquarters. They were drowned in a sea of spit and curses, while I stood in the crowd, both crying and laughing. The tears were fake, but the laughter was real. After 2 lifetimes, I finally had my moment of triumph. It's time I had a good laugh. Nico Shu and Vivi Lee were publicly shamed for 3 days, and I went to watch the spectacle every day. Nico Shu and Vivi Lee were pelted with mud and rotten vegetables. Nico Shu truly loved Vivi Lee, shielding her with his own body. He was covered in mud and beaten black and blue. This matter has caused quite a stir. And Nico Shu's mother rushed over upon hearing the commotion. Seeing her son tied up and publicly humiliated on the stage, Nico Shu's mother was filled with a mix of anger, rage, and heartache. What made her even angrier was that I was the one who led the group to expose this incident, in front of everyone. She didn't dare to do anything to me, suppressing her rage and planning to deal with me later. When I went back to cook and eat, she stormed in angrily. "Iris Yi, you shameless little wretch. How dare you? I'll beat you to death today." Nico Shu's mother angrily lunged at me to strike, but I quickly dodged, causing her to crash into the wall with excessive force. Blood gushed from her nose, but she still tried to come at me while clutching her painful nose. I raised my voice and exclaimed in shock, "It's your son who behaved improperly and did wrong. Those who do wrong should be punished. Why are you hitting me without distinguishing right from wrong?" I screamed and ran out. Catching Nico Shu's mother completely off guard, she didn't dare to chase after me to hit me, especially since her son was already in the spotlight. She had no reason to bully me, the victim, any further. I ran around the village shouting, and in the end, Nico Shu's mother was reprimanded by the village officials, who told her not to bully me again. She glared at me with venom in her eyes, unable to comprehend why someone as meek as me had changed so drastically. Realizing I wasn't someone to be easily manipulated, she knelt down, weeping and pleading with the village officials to spare her son. Since we're all neighbors in the village, the officials also pitied her and eventually came to discuss with me about letting Nico Shu off. The village officials thought I was still collecting trash and earnestly pleaded that Nico Shu had only made a momentary mistake, urging me to forgive and let Nico Shu go. From now on, Nico Shu must truly change and live a good life with me. How could I continue to disgust myself? I told the village officials that I wanted a divorce. At that time, divorce wasn't even a common topic. I was the first woman to bring it up. The village officials were all shocked by my unconventional behavior. They earnestly advised me, "Iris Yi, you mustn't say such foolish things. How will a woman like you manage after a divorce?" That's right, a woman can't survive without a man. Nico Shu is just momentarily led astray. He'll come to his senses, but I was determined to divorce. I'm not afraid of being gossiped about. I've had enough of being bullied and beaten by Nico Shu and his mother. Not only Nico Shu's mother would cry, I would cry too. Now they are bullying me like this. Who knows how they will treat me in the future? I begged the leaders to give me a way out. The village officials also knew about me being bullied. In the end, they sighed and agreed to write me a testimonial. Divorce is just the first step, of course. I won't stop here. I also want Nico Shu to compensate me for my losses. I married Nico Shu, but his promiscuous relationships caused the death of our child and harmed my health. I demand Nico Shu compensate me for my emotional damages. My demands could be said to be unheard of. And the village officials thought I was being unreasonable, but I insist that if I don't get compensation, I will sue to have Vivi Lee imprisoned. Finally, with the village officials as witnesses, Nico Shu compensated me 200 yuan for Vivi Lee. Nico Shu also hated me to death. At this point, he couldn't wait to divorce me and give Vivi Lee a proper status. Just like that, Nico Shu and I had a swift divorce. When I got the divorce certificate, I smiled, while Nico Shu glared at me with gritted teeth. "Iris Yi, just you wait." "Oh, I'm waiting. I'll be watching closely. After all, you two scumbags haven't gotten what you truly deserve yet. I'll be keeping a close eye on you." Nico Shu was so frightened by the hatred in my eyes that he took several steps back before finally leaving in a huff. A week after Nico Shu and I divorced, He and Vivi Lee officially registered their marriage. Nico Shu rightfully moved into Vivi Lee's home. And the two despicable individuals even spent money to host a few banquet tables. Vivi Lee blocked me at the door, clutching her waist with a venomous glare. "Iris Yee, don't think you've defeated us like this. I'm telling you, we'll only get better and better," Nico Shu's mother chimed in, backing her up. "You jinx, just wait to end up alone for the rest of your life. No man would dare take a woman like you." I laughed. "Then let's wait and see. I hope you can still laugh after tomorrow." In my past life, Nico Shu's mother broke her leg on this very day. Back then, there was no marriage between Nico Shu and Vivi Lee, so I don't know if things will change this time, but I'm still looking forward to it. After all, who would show mercy to their enemies that day? The commotion in Vivi Lee's courtyard didn't die down until midnight. I fell asleep peacefully, only to be awakened by screams in my dreams. The heart-wrenching screams echoed far and wide as dawn began to break outside. I got up and saw villagers, alerted by the sounds, running over from all directions. I stood at the door, watching as Nico Shu's mother, covered in blood, was carried out by the villagers. Just like in her previous life, she had missed a step on the stairs, fallen, and broken both legs. Nico Shu's mother, covered in blood, was taken to the town hospital. Nico Shu and Vivi Lee, both disheveled, followed along. Both of them wore expressions of panic on their faces as they saw me standing at the door watching the commotion. Nico Shu and Vivi Lee both glared at me with venom, while I smiled back at them. Villagers walked past me, murmuring among themselves, "This Vivi Lee is nothing but a jinx. She married Gongzi, and within a year, Gongzi had an accident and died." Now, after just one night of marrying Nico Shu's mother broke her leg. This kind of woman has a tough fate. The Shu family is likely to face misfortune from now on. I curled my lips in a smile. Rumors can kill. In their past life, Nico Shu's mother blamed me when she broke her own leg. They say I can't keep my own child, that I'm a jinx. Now that she's heard the rumors about Vivi Lee, what will she think? I can't wait to see the drama unfold. While eagerly watching the show, I mustn't forget the real business at hand. In this lifetime, I want to go to university, so I'm not just here to watch their excitement. I need to make the most of my time to study. I bought study materials and started learning. Apart from working to earn work points, my daily routine is all about studying. Time flies, and for over a month, I've been immersed in the ocean of knowledge. The Shu family, whom I resent, didn't really care about me. Until one morning when I got up to fetch water and heard shouting from next door, "Jinx, it's all because of you. If you hadn't seduced my son, he wouldn't have lost his job, wouldn't have married you, and I wouldn't have broken my leg. It's all because of you, you jinx." The show has finally begun. After more than 20 days of hospital treatment with no improvement, Nico Shu's mother had no choice but to return home, unable to accept being bedridden. One can imagine how Nico Shu's mother must have felt. In her distress, neither Vivi Lee nor Nico Shu showed much concern for her. Nico Shu feels heartbroken that Vivi Lee has to take care of his mother while being pregnant. He lost his job, and there was no income at home. The responsibility of earning a living fell entirely on him. Every day was packed with exhausting work, leaving him utterly drained. He wanted to go to college, he wanted to study, but he had no time. He was too busy with work, busy earning a living, busy mediating the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship. Nico Shu's mother is no easy person to deal with, and Vivi Lee isn't the type to endure hardships without complaint. At first, she could still tolerate it, but later she stopped putting up with it altogether. Nico Shu's mother demands constant attention, needing help with everything and expecting immediate service. Vivi Lee, who is used to a carefree life, has no intention of serving this sharp-tongued, unkind old woman. She repeatedly cried in front of Nico Shu, complaining about his mother's harshness. Nico Shu was mentally and physically exhausted. On one side was his biological mother, on the other, the woman he loved. He wouldn't help anyone. He resented his mother for being troublesome and blamed Vivi Lee for not tolerating his mother for his sake. Thinking back, why had he never encountered such problems before? Next door, the quarrels were constant. Small arguments every 3 days and major fights every 5. I could hear the sound of things being smashed and curses being shouted through the wall, clear as day. When I'm tired from studying, this is my entertainment. Listening to it makes me feel exhilarated. And I study with even more energy. In December 1977, the National College entrance exams were reinstated. I walked into the examination hall full of confidence and encountered a haggard Nico Shu outside. Nico Shu was dark and skinny, and he visibly startled when he saw me. "What are you doing here? What's it to you?" I sneered and entered the examination hall ahead of him. The examination hall was quiet, with only the faint sound of pens scratching on paper filling the air. I didn't encounter any difficulties, it was a breeze. After leaving the exam hall, I ran into Nico Shu again, and he stopped me once more. "Iris Yi, why are you taking the college entrance exam? Do you also want to go to university?" "Yes, how could you possibly pass?" His face was full of disbelief. He never took me seriously. In his eyes, I was just an accessory, an insignificant person like me. How could I possibly take the college entrance exam with him? I ignored Nico Shu and headed home. As I reached the door, I heard a stream of vulgar curses coming from the neighboring yard. "Nico Shu's mom is going crazy again. Her stream of insults is endless." In my past life, my ears grew calluses from hearing them, and I became numb to it all. This time around, it's Vivi Lee's turn. Nico Shu's mother is hurling even more vicious insults at Vivi Lee than she did at me in the previous life. Words like stealing men and raising bastards and filthy whore were thrown around. Amidst the venomous curses, I heard Vivi Lee fighting back. Vivi Lee was never someone to be trifled with. Her insults as uniquely bizarre as Nico Shu's mother. Once the first insult was out, the rest followed naturally. The two hurled curses at each other, each accusation filthier and more vile than the last. Then I heard a sharp, crisp slap. "You hit me, you damn bastard." A louder series of slapping sounds followed, and Nico Shu, who had been trailing not far behind me, swiftly pushed open the door. I witnessed the scene unfolding in the courtyard. Nico Shu's mother lay on the ground, with Vivi Lee straddling her, both hands rapidly delivering slap after slap to her face. The crisp sound of the slaps carried far. Watching this scene, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. How exhilarating. Witnessing his paralyzed mother being beaten firsthand, Nico Shu's fury was beyond words. Not to mention there was me outside, someone who enjoys watching the drama and doesn't mind things getting bigger, spectating the scene. In a fit of rage, he stormed in and violently knocked Vivi Lee over. Caught off guard, Vivi Lee was thrown heavily to the ground by Nico Shu. As luck would have it, her belly hit the stone bench in the courtyard. That scream sent chills down my spine. I focused my gaze and saw Vivi Lee clutching her stomach, her pants stained red with blood. Nico Shu, who had just helped his mother up, turned his head in confusion at the sound of the scream. Seeing Vivi Lee's condition, he let go of his mother and rushed over. Vivi. Vivi Lee no longer had the strength to respond. She clutched her stomach, her face contorted in pain. This scene was eerily similar to when she had pushed me down the stairs. Back then, I too had suffered such agony, such misery, such despair. Nico Shu let out a painful wail. "Someone help, help." I watched the scene indifferently, then slowly turned away under Nico Shu's pleading gaze. That evening I heard villagers say Vivi Lee had lost her child. This is retribution. What a wicked woman. She seduced another woman's husband and caused the death of her child. This is instant karma. Serves her right. It's said that Nico Shu stayed at the hospital with Vivi Lee for 2 days without returning home. Nico Shu's mother, covered in filth, crawled out the door searching for food out of starvation. I heard her cries for help, but what does that have to do with me? The villagers were all gossiping, with no one showing sympathy for Vivi Lee, and of course, no one pitying Nico Shu's mother's plight either. A smile played at the corners of my lips. What sheer delight. This is absolute bliss. This life was truly worth living. 1 month later, the college entrance exam results were released. I got into the university I had long dreamed of. With the highest score in the entire county, Nico Shu also got admitted, but the difference from the previous life is too great. In his past life, he was the top scorer in the city, but in this life, he barely scraped by. He just barely managed to get into a junior college. The day I was draped in red and adorned with colors, he stood in the crowd, looking at me with a complicated gaze. I didn't spare him a single glance. In this life, my path will be entirely different from the previous one. The 4 years of university passed quickly, and I actively participated in supporting the development of the western regions of our country. Another 10 years passed, and I achieved great success. As a model advanced worker, I gave speeches across the country, with the final stop being my hometown. Accompanied by local officials, I returned to my hometown after more than a decade of absence, overwhelmed with emotions. My home still looks the same as before. As the village has been maintaining it and preventing it from collapsing, the village cadres accompanied me to my doorstep, and the low gate of the neighboring courtyard opened from inside. A hunched man emerged from within. Hearing the sound, he looked up, and our eyes met. I parted my lips in a smile. The man was stunned. It's been over 10 years since we last met, and I never expected Nico Shu would still be living here. Didn't he get into college? How could he end up staying in the countryside looking like this? Nico Shu noticed the mockery in my eyes and awkwardly lowered his head. The village officials, aware of our past conflicts, told me about Nico Shu's situation. Nico Shu was admitted to a junior college and wanted to attend university, but there was no one to take care of his elderly mother, nor anyone willing to shoulder the burden of his tuition without complaint. The Vivi Lee he longed for was not a fool like me. Vivi Lee only had a taste for sweetness, not hardship, and so, Nico Shu did not go to university. He was forced to stay behind to care for his paralyzed mother. After the land was divided during the reform and opening up, he could only rely on farming for himself. Nico Shu had no labor force, knew nothing about farming and couldn't grow anything, and had no capital to start a business. While others began to prosper, he couldn't keep up. He is the worst off in this village. His beloved Vivi Lee, after enduring 5 years of hardship with him, became involved with another man in an unclear relationship. Nico Shu had no choice. He had confronted Vivi Lee before, but it was useless. Vivi Lee looked down on him, alone. He cared for his paralyzed, ill-tempered mother who refused to die, leaving him with even fewer options. There was no money to repair the house, and life became increasingly strained. Listening to the village official's account, I actually burst out laughing. I had already stopped caring about it, but then I just had to find out what could bring me more joy than knowing my enemies are suffering. I'm no saint. I still remember the hardships from my past life. On the day I left, a brutal murder occurred in the village. The man stabbed the adulterous woman with a knife, spilling her intestines and organs. The woman died instantly on the spot. The man was apprehended immediately. He offered no resistance and kept muttering to himself, "It shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this. I'm not a peasant. I shouldn't be living this kind of life. I'm a professor. I'm a university professor. I don't know what happened afterward, nor do I have the energy or inclination to inquire. At most, it's a matter of life for a life."